Thank Good evening. And we want to thank you and welcome you to a new year, a new start, and the excitement that we will have in getting closer to summer break. So, not to rush it or anything, but welcome to our January 7th Parent and Community Advisory Council meeting. At this time, the meeting has been called to order. And Ms. Lawrence, if you can take roll call, that would be appreciated.
Sure. James Williams,
Here.
Trevon Suki, Trevon Suki, Reverend Dr. Evelina Huggins, Reverend Dr. Evelina Huggins, Carletta Lundy,
Present.
Will Bronson,
Present.
Gracia Herreta, Gracia Herreta, Kamika Harris,
Present.
Christopher Smith,
Present.
myself, Teresa Smith,
Present.
Chair Millhouse,
Present.
Yosaida Hinton, Rojas Hinton, my apologies. Candace Perkins,
Present.
Dr. Sheila Jackson,
Present.
Robin Welsh,
Present.
and Lolita Walker. All right, we have a quorum.
Thank you, Ms. Lawrence. And I just want to make for the record that liaison board member Walker does not, she's not included into our quorum.
I'll
Thank you.
remember that by next meeting. Thank you.
No worries. Thank you, everyone. And again, I'm excited. I do want to take a moment to thank Ms. McMillan. Ms. Woodridge is not here tonight. Ms. McMillan is another support staff person who will be assisting us tonight. So thank you and welcome for being with us here today with all the excitement that you'll get from us. It's such a lively group. We will move into item 3.1, adoption of the agenda. And right now, there's some changes that we need to make to the agenda. Right now, the agenda is showing report of the superintendent, the superintendent designees, item 6.1, as well as presentations that the superintendent designees will have under 7.1 and 7.2. The recommendation is to have item 6.1 move down to the presentation. So the report of the superintendent designees, I actually don't want to move it down. I want to remove that. And in its place, I want to have the report of the superintendent to be in its place. So what I would like to present as a motion is that we remove item 6.1 that reads report of the superintendent designees, and it will then read report of the superintendent. And then items 7.1 and 7.2 will stay the same for the presentations by the superintendent designees. So that is the change that I would like to make before we adopt this agenda. And let me say that I wasn't actually making a motion. That is the change that I want to make. So I need a motion to adopt the change.
Motion to adopt the change.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
I second it.
Thank you, Ms. Perkins. And so at this time, do we have any other discussion about those changes? Hearing none, the changes have been adopted to rename item 6.1 to the report of the superintendent. And then the presentations for 7.1 and 7.2 will remain the same. And we will now move into the approval of the December 3rd, 2025 meeting minutes. Do we have anyone who opposes those meeting minutes? Hearing none, we will adopt the meeting minutes for December the 3rd, from December 3rd, 2025 meeting. We are now moving into my time as the report of the chair. And Ms. Douglas, I am going to give you some of my time because I will like you to introduce yourself. But I will say very quickly and briefly, the December meeting for the community schools was canceled because the light snowstorm and the ice that we had. So the next meeting will be coming up on the 14th of January. So we did not do the presentation and it has not yet been rescheduled. Um, there's information that will be going out to you all about the legislative activities that are starting next week. The delegation goes into session. We did receive the legislative platform, and I would state, read through it, ask your board members or anyone in the board, if you're not in a district seat, ask questions about what their thoughts were in pulling this together. But please stay actively involved. I know Dr. Jackson has sent out another email, and Dr. Jackson, jump in at any moment. It did go out to all PCAC members, correct? Yes, about dollars and decisions, the meeting. I know the December meeting was canceled. There was low participation in that. So I am encouraging you all. Dr. Jackson sent out the invite. Identify the days that you can come and please be involved in this process because it does matter. You want to learn as much as possible as it relates to how the budgeting decisions are being made because they will impact every school. And so at this time, I have nothing else to report, but I would like to lend my time to Superintendent Liaison, Ms. Douglas, brief introductions. The Leadership Council or the Executive Council for PCAC, we did get an opportunity to meet with her a couple of months ago and very welcoming. We're excited. And so I'm passing the baton to you.
Chair Millhouse, it looks like Vice Chair Smith had a question before we move forward.
Vice Chair Smith.
Thank you, Chair Millhouse. I just had a follow-up question regarding the dollars and cents sessions. I did receive the email, but I wanted some clarity as to whether or not the schedule has changed. I know that when I completed the Google form, I selected my dates, but if any of the dates changed, that would be most helpful for me. So maybe the question is for Dr. Jackson.
Is it okay to answer?
Yes.
Chair Millhouse. So I do want everyone to know that the meetings were supposed to be in person, and we only had one person that was able to make it into the meeting in December. So they've all been changed to virtual to make it easier for people to attend. So the dates have only been changed by the one for January 21st has just been moved to January 14th. And that's just because that is a very busy week for budget decisions in the state. And so we wanted to give our superintendent more time to be in those meetings as well. So you all received an email today confirming the meeting tomorrow night is virtual. And that one is the Budget Advisory Committee that contains PCAC members. It contains union leaders, principals of our charter schools, as well as, and I know Ms. Douglas is on here, so I might forget someone, but it is a very robust discussion to talk about where we are in the process.
And Dr. Jackson or Chair Millhouse, if I could just add one more comment about this, just maybe it's something for us to think about in the future. These meetings are starting at 6 o'clock, and you have the public that's trying to get to these meetings. 6 o'clock may be a little bit early. I do realize that you guys are probably working since 5 o'clock in the morning. I did come in person, but I was late because I was traveling across town, and another parent arrived just as I was leaving out. So the start time of the meeting could be a crunch for some folks. So just something to think about in the future.
Thank you. Your input is very much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Smith. Thank you, Dr. Jackson. Now, I'm sorry that I missed you, Vice Chair, but now, Ms. Douglas, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair Millhouse, and it is truly an honor and a pleasure for me to be a part of this committee and this meeting. I'm new to the district, but I can see your high level of commitment to the work that we're doing and to our kids, and like you, I'm also committed to that. I did get a chance to, even though you couldn't see me on camera, not the December meeting, but the previous meeting, I did get a chance to hear some of what you were saying, and some of what you expressed had direct connections to communications. And so I would like to, at some point, revisit some of your concerns and some of what you would like to work and accomplish with the communications department, so that we can kind of make sure that your needs are addressed. As you all know, the hot button issue right now is the budget. Another hot button issue coming up will be our strategic plan. However, one of the primary goals for our communications department is to tell our stories and to make sure that, you know, your concerns, as well as what's going on in the schools from a positive perspective, gets out there to the media, to the parents, and so forth. And as people who are on the ground, I know you all have direct connections to some of those good stories, some of those good ideas that we need to uplift once we get past this, the main issues with the budget. And even as we're doing that, I think we can simultaneously uplift some of those stories to let people know that all of the good things that this county represents. Just kind of a side note, in a couple of weeks, we're going to be launching a page on our website called Where Are They Now?, which highlights alumni who have done exceedingly well, people like Taraji, people that you may not recognize their names as much, like Harold Fisher with WHUR. I mean, just a whole lot of people in different industries and so forth, to really show that Prince George's County, despite sometimes perceptions that may not be accurate, that we are good and we have a lot to share. So just looking forward to your input when it comes to the budget, and I know you'll share that when the superintendent comes on, but also looking forward to, you know, connecting with you on how the team can address some of your concerns and your issues having to do with communications, and also what we can do to connect and continuously have that pipeline going, so I can hear from you and highlight all the good that we have to share. And if you have any questions for me, in this meeting or even beyond, I'm always available via email, via phone, and so forth and so on. So feel free to reach out at any point.
Thank you, Ms. Douglas. And I want to add that Ms. Douglas, you know, maybe she stated she was new to Prince George's County Public Schools. She is not new to the communication realm in Prince George's County. And so, you know, I think what's important is knowing the pulse of this community and how we carry the message about what we do, because the world has continued to frame who we are. And so we are hoping that if you would like to come and just have a, you know, advisory discussion with PCAC, you tell us what month and we'll, you know, avail that date to you. And I think that works best. And that way you're just not hearing from the leadership portion of PCAC, because we have a wealth of knowledge that's here. And so I appreciate you opening that up, because we do need to foster more, you know, two-way communication. So the school system is not talking at the community and saying, here, take this and run with it. But you're elevating not only the voices of the parents, the community members, but the students, and collectively, we are moving as a unit to frame the story about PGCPS versus trying to unravel what was framed.
Exactly. And thank you so much, Chair Millhouse, for mentioning that I'm not new to the county. Not only did I go to Oxon Hill High School, I went to University of Maryland. And for the 6 years prior to joining the school district, I was um, director of communications for State's Attorney Bravoy at the time. Now she's county executive. So in terms of knowing the fabric of this county, in terms of knowing the pulse of what is needed, I'm definitely here with you. And yes, I'm going to either connect with you, Chair Millhouse, or someone else in order that we can schedule a meeting and again, get that relationship between us stronger.
Mhm. And we can talk so we can schedule it, but I do want to make sure that when you come, you're coming with the whole group so they can, provide that input. Because we're just a couple of voices, but the council as a whole, there is so much that can be shared, from the group as a whole. So I appreciate you. I see Ms. Perkins' hands is up. And so and I just wanted to make sure that you highlighted that you've been here, boots on the ground, so you know.
Exactly. And I
So you
love
know.
this county. I love the work that the superintendent has put forth for us and the work that we will do as a communications team for you all and for all the amazing students and parents that are in this county. So looking forward to much more.
Thank you so much. Ms. Perkins, you had your hand up.
Thank you, Chair Millhouse. Chief Douglas, thank you for coming on and meeting with us tonight. It's good to finally put names to faces in person and virtually. So thank you for your time. I will say, as a parent, I have seen the progressiveness and the evolution of comms, right? From the website to the messaging and such. In this budget season that we are in, this critical element, the parent community, we had that budget forum, I think it was December, November before break, but we have 4 more virtual meetings, I think it is.
Yes.
Yes, in this budget season. So I guess my question is there a plan to kind of do like a pit stop update to parents? Because if you're not in these meetings, right? As a parent, the average parent, how will they know the progress or where we are with the execution or the progress of the budget?
Great question, Ms. Perkins. And let me also mention that Superintendent Joseph is on his camera. I think he's working on turning it on. But our planning and how we're rolling out our messaging is evolving. And so I'm glad that you brought that to the table because we can make sure and add to our planning additional meetings that you think or that would reach a broader audience. So specifically, what are you thinking that the meetings are missing some parents, or what is it that is your
Not
thought or
even
concern?
missing, right? So you have the tiger team, I'll just call it, in the meetings, right? But for those that are not able to attend for whatever reason, as an invested parent in the community, they still should have an update, right? So maybe it's a quick couple bullets that you put on the parent link on the PGCPS, or maybe it's a text message saying, hey, here's the link to the fact sheet with the most updated
Yes.
information as to where we are with the budget tracking and progression, just something so people can refer back to, because it's unrealistic to want to create more and more meetings, especially in this tight environment that we're in, right? But I do think that we don't want to forget about those that aren't necessarily in the meetings, but they're invested into the results of it.
Yes, and we're in the process of creating a number of fact sheets. We'll just make sure that that also goes out to parents who may not be able to attend the meeting. So thank you for bringing that up and making sure that we don't forget every facet. So thanks again for that.
Thank you. And at this time, I am going to conclude my segment for discussion as a report of the chair. And we will move into, is the superintendent, he is present? Is he here?
He communicated with me that he is listening and he's going to turn his camera on. So, and he just texted me back that he will be turning it on. So if we could go ahead and then as soon as he jumps in, we'll see him.
Okay, so I don't know where we're going to go to because it's his segment. So are there any other questions for communication while we want to give him some time to come on?
He is here. We just have to get him on.
We're gonna get him on, so we're gonna give some time. But I do want to ask something, Chief Douglas.
Yes,
The
absolutely.
previous meeting, and you may have been watching at that time, we were asking on a way that there could be some way to do a training video to help people understand how to navigate diligent, right? I don't know if you were on when we were trying to figure out where the agenda was. But it's a new system that, was rolled out, and I get that it was a state thing, right? But it would be helpful if there were some way to kind of organize information to make sure that people understood how to access that information, right? Um, like Ms. Perkins mentioned, the website is a lot more engaging, right? But it's still information that it is drawing me to get to that information. It is not where it's really a lot that's being pushed out unless I'm signed up. And I'm going to put a pin in that because the superintendent is here.
It's on. Okay, and then when we follow up and we meet, when I meet with the entire committee, we can talk further about this and other issues as well. So we will definitely address it.
Mhm. And so, Ms. Smith, if you can put a pin in that, and so we're going to go ahead and move into item 6.1, which we have now titled Report of the Superintendent. Thank you, Superintendent Joseph, for coming here tonight with us. We did actually have on the agenda that we submitted in that we were going to have a discussion about dollars and decisions. And with the way I had it set up was really just to talk to, the committee or the council about the importance of attending those meetings that you had put forth to give some information and how to kind of go through the budget itself and what was proposed to get a good understanding of what decisions are being made and the impact of those decisions. So I am going to give you the baton right now and the mic to just kind of kick off what you wanted to do with us tonight. And thank you for coming.
Sure. And how much time would you like me to?
I mean, you have as much time as you would like, but what I want to do for you is if I can do a quick introduction for people so you know who's on, if that's okay.
Sure. Thank you.
And so I'll just ask you all to state your name, how you are representing the council. I will start with myself. I'm Chair Dolores Millhouse. I represent District 7. And I'm going to move to who I see next would be Vice Chair Smith. Can you introduce yourself?
Good evening, everyone. I am Vice Chair Smith. I cannot remember how long I've been on this council, but I represent District 6, and I guess that's all we need to state.
This is your second term.
Second term. Thank you.
Okay. Secretary Lauren.
Hi, Akimbra Lawrence and Recording Secretary. And I represent the wonderful and amazing District 5.
This is your first term.
Yes.
Okay, Dr. Jackson, which you should know, Superintendent, but Dr. Jackson.
I think he knows me well. Dr. Sheila Jackson, Director of our Department of Family and Community Partnerships. And I am an appointed member of PCAC by our superintendent.
Thank you very much. Ms. Harris.
Hi, my name is Ms. Kamika Harris, and I represent District 3, and it's my first term.
Great.
Thank you. And I also want to make sure that we introduce our board support tonight, Ms. McMillan.
Hello, I'm a board secretary.
Mr. Williams.
James Williams, nonprofit representative, and first term.
Ms. Lundy.
Hi, Happy New Year, Superintendent. This is Carletta Lundy. I am the Civic and Community Representative, and this is indeed my second term. Glad to be here. Glad to have you.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Bronson.
Good evening, Will Bronson, District 1, first term.
Great and share what's on your mind tonight. I just got like you said. If you see you, I am always on Instagram at person of comedy and
Chris, can you hear us? Chris?
Yeah, there you go. I hear you now. Hey, Happy New Year, everyone. Christopher Smith, District 4.
Thank you. Ms. Welsh?
Good evening, Dr. Joseph. I know you know me. I'm Ronald March, and
Hey,
I'm
Robin.
the Director of Government Relations, Compliance, and Procedures, and I am an appointed member of this committee by you.
Yes.
Ms. Perkins?
Good evening, Superintendent Joseph. My name is Candace Perkins. I represent District 9, and this is my first term.
Great, thank you.
Ms. Hinton?
Good evening, Superintendent. My name is Josaida Rojas Hinton. I represent District 8, my second term. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for having me.
Thank you. And so I see that our board member, our liaison board member, Ms. Walker has joined us, and you know, the superintendent liaison, and now you have the mic.
Well,
Floor is
thank you,
yours.
thank you. Thank you, and I apologize for not being at a computer. I flew in just I flew in last night from Las Vegas on a one of those midnight flights. So I landed at 5 o'clock this morning, and then just went straight, to the office. And so I've been running, and we had meetings all day. So I stopped off at my barbershop because I saw the time just to pull over. Again, so just when I say I'm committed, and I said I was going to come to every meeting and be a part of it because it's important. I mean, it's important for us to have a relationship and to be able to work together for the common good of our children. So I'm thankful for you and the work that you do because I know it's a lot to take on in a voluntary status, but it's extremely important because we need your insight and input and advocacy and to help you to help us understand blind spots and to just try to move our system forward. We're in the midst of this budget season, and we have identified 150, I guess about $143 million in cuts. And I believe we have a meeting coming up this week where we'll be able to walk you through some of that and gather your input. I mean, my approach to budgeting is to try to get as much feedback up front to at least know the areas and challenges and opportunities and so forth, knowing it's a 6-month process and there are opportunities to work. So, all I do is present a recommended budget to the board, but then the board will listen to the community, engage the community, and everyone make modifications if needed, and then move it on to the county executive and the county council, and ultimately come back and reconcile once we have those dollars. So the process is good, but I think the best way for me is to hear the board, hear the community, understand the kind of our shared priorities, and present a budget that, if nothing else, reflects our shared values. And because I do believe a budget is a value proposition, and it's one of the things that I think in Prince George's County people aren't aware of. I heard a lot, coming in, and this background. I was out of the superintendency for 6 years, and I thought I was going to be done. So I really wasn't paying attention to what was happening in the local region, quite frankly, because at Howard, I supported the National Superintendent's Academy, and most of the work I did was out of state. So coming back into Prince George's County and starting to just pay attention to the blueprint work and the funding and getting history and such, I don't know if I would say this. I don't say this out loud, but it's something we have to acknowledge as a county. We have to ask ourselves as a county, do we fundamentally believe in education, and are we willing to make it a priority? And I think that's a big question we have to ask ourselves as a system. Because when you look at if a budget is a value proposition, when you look at a Montgomery County, an Anne Arundel County, a Baltimore County, for example, you'll see, in a Montgomery County, 50 to 60% of the county's budget goes to education, right? Same in Anne Arundel County, same in Baltimore County. But when you look at Prince George's County, about 20% of the county's budget goes to education. Now, I'm just talking proportion. So without dollars, because you can make, people make lots of different arguments, and I listen deeply, and I hear people talking about, our taxes are high. They are. And I hear oh, well, we don't have the same kind of money as Montgomery. That's true. But I'm talking proportions now, and a value system. So, if I got $10 and you got $100, well, for me, if I'm giving 50% of my $10, that's $5. You got 100, 10% is 50. Proportionally, it would value the same. We just got different dollars that we're putting towards it. Like I can give you what I have. And I think where we are, and particularly with new leadership in the county, with the county executive, new leadership, with the council, at some point, I think somebody has to bring us together for a visioning opportunity to say, who are we as a system? What are our values? And are we putting our money where our values are? Because for me, people can talk a whole good game. You can tell me all kinds of stuff, but where you choose to invest, that's where you show me you value. And so as we go into this budget season, I take that to heart. This is a tough budget year where we, as a county, there's a deficit that they have to address. But as a system, I think it's our responsibility to present a budget as if we're going to get no help, because there's a possibility you don't get help besides what's minimally needed to be done. So when we say 100, even though we handled the contracts and things of that nature, the cost of things are going up. So we predict that if we do nothing, we'd have $150 million shortfall to fill. So on January 22nd, we'll present a budget that shows how we'd close, $150 million deficit. And we put parameters around it. So some of the things I said, well, the last thing we'll touch is schools, right? Like we don't want to take any money from schools because we know schools are already underfunded. So to go to schools and take money from schools that are underfunded won't help us move academics forward, right? So that was one kind of parameter that we put on, not don't take money from school budgets. Then also, we just got all these negotiated contracts to get our salaries competitive. So we don't want to go backwards there, because one of the things we're proud of this year is we reduced our vacancies by 52%. So Governor Moore did an announcement recently discussing the decrease in vacancies in the state of Maryland. Well, half of it was because Prince George's County reduced it by 52%. We went from over 900 vacancies last year to less than 400 this year. We're going to do a press conference this semester. I wanted to do it. We'll kick that off when we kick off the recruitment strategy for this year and what we're doing to make sure we actually fill, vacancies. But we didn't want to touch negotiated salary. So that 102 million is a real number that we have to address going into next year. But we also, I feel like we can't, no district will ever be excellent if we're just cutting and reducing. You've got to look forward because, right, a people without a vision perish. So we've got to ask ourselves, how are we going to give our kids a competitive advantage with the $3 billion that we do have? Even though we're cutting, acknowledge we still have $3 billion. So what are we doing with that? And what's the impact that has on children? And where are we moving forward? And for me, it's hard to be excellent with everything with limited resource, but you should be excellent in something. And I think as a system, we've got to ask ourselves, what do we want to be excellent in? And to me, basics, reading and mathematics should be a hyper-focused on in our system. Also, as we're moving forward, the world has shifted as we knew it 3 years ago with the introduction of ChatGPT and this whole AI world. And the question becomes for us, how do we help our kids live and be prepared in this world? I think any school system that's not thinking about that seriously in this moment is foolish, because there'll be kids who are advantaged in producing things at a much faster rate, a much more efficient rate, much more creativity, much more productivity. and we'd be left behind. So I feel like we have to prioritize how do we use AI ethically and responsibly, not focusing on the tool, but focusing on the potential use, how to use it effectively, efficiently, and critically. So that I see a lot of districts around the country. Like as I look at, because I pay attention, I am the most competitive person you will ever meet, ever. Like I obsess sometimes. It's a strength and it's a challenge for me. But so like when I look at Montgomery County and their budget that they put out, I think it's brilliant in many aspects in that they're focusing on lowering class size. They're focusing on professional development. They're asking for 179 million additional dollars beyond the minimum expectation, right? So I mean, and they're focusing on salaries and all these things. But when I look at that budget, it's not very visionary. I mean, they're basically saying we want to get to the basics and do the basics well, and I think what they put together potentially could do that, which is a good thing. But again, I think we have a competitive advantage to look towards the future and where are we going, and I think we can do some pretty exciting things in the realms of science, technology, engineering, arts, mathematics, focusing on reading and mathematics, using AI, really leveraging professional development, because we've got a lot of folks, but the difference between our best teachers and our worst teachers is tremendous. And we've got to make training much more mandatory in the district, much more accountable in the district. And we've also got to focus on safety across the district. I mean, I think any district that's not continuing to invest in safety is going to have significant challenges here. And so, in looking at that, I'm looking at cutting 150 million from the budget, but requesting 50 million. Quite frankly, and the 50 million, 30 million of it being to address our special education deficits that we have right now. I mean, we're woefully underfunded in special education locally and at the state level. And I don't think we can just ignore that basic. So a big bulk of what I'm going to be requesting is going to be special education. Then focusing on how we focus on reading and mathematics, professional development, and the use of AI. So all of that, I think, that's just basic strengthening teaching and learning in those areas is what I'm looking towards. And then thinking about safety. We've got to make sure our high schools have appropriate technology in terms of camera use and things. I remember Miss Millhouse asking the question last time. We can't rely on people. People are going to continue to blow our budget if we just keep bringing people on. I agreed with you when you brought that up the last time. And so how do we use technology efficiently? So thinking about investments at the elementary level, where we don't necessarily need, security officers and so forth, but there's technology now so teachers can have, if something happens, they can press a button around their neck and alert people and have police and people coming and things of that nature. How do we have, make sure everybody feels safe if people physically aren't there, while strengthening the areas at the middle schools and high schools that need that type of work. So this is to me a back to basis budget. I think 2 years ago, I think a mistake was made in our county where we over legislate in our county particularly. And I think 2 years ago, Angela Alsobrooks led the charge to have a tax taken from the system.
Telecom tax.
Thank you. Yeah, the telecom tax at the tune of about $50 million a year. And so while every county around us paid the minimum, and then most of them got, last year, Montgomery, for example, got 8% above the minimum. So they got about $170 million on top of the minimum requirement they're supposed to spend. Prince George's County lost 50 million because they didn't get the additional dollars and had no additions for 2 years. So a big part of what we must do, I think, is just educate the public on where we are, and ask the question, does our budget represent our values? Do we feel that way? And I'm not, and I'm not even getting into trying to raise taxes or anything like that. Because, I think, we're not ready for that type of conversation in this moment, particularly when we're in a structural deficit. But I do think it's appropriate to ask, well, can we get back to where we were at least 2 years ago before we took money away when everybody else is giving money back? And we can show you, we'll do our part and be good stewards. Like we can cut 150 million. It'll hurt, but it won't kill us in the $3 billion budget on this year. But maybe this is a moment to right size, to reprioritize, and to focus, and to be clear about what we're going to be excellent at. But I don't think it's going to be easy to get $50 million, which is what we lost 2 years ago. But I think for this year as a starting point, that's what I'm going to be proposing. Just get us those dollars back, allow us to refocus. And, I think as a nation, we're challenged because we had the largest investment in the history of public education with these COVID dollars. And many would argue that it was wasted. It was a wasted moment, that money came, there's been no outcome, and we spent a whole lot of money. So knowing that, like I said, I was on the debate team at Lincoln University, and a good debater understands what's the argument against anything you're about to say. Like, be prepared for the argument. So I actually see cutting this $150 million as an opportunity to say, everybody talks about fat and school systems. You got all this money, you're wasting money, you're doing this and that and that and this. You know what? Let's make appropriate cuts on things that we knew might have been wasteful, might have not had a return on investment, all of the above. Let's recalibrate. Let's reprioritize what's important. Let's think about the vision moving forward, and let's be excellent at something and have a plan for that and hold us accountable for it, And so the approach I'm taking is to be clear about our priorities. And in this $50 million, it would be around special education, strengthening professional development, particularly in reading and math, using tools efficiently as it relates to AI, and focusing on technology and preserving the salary increases that we, have given our employees, which they deserve for the work. And then holding us accountable to getting outcomes as we build, a new strategic plan in this year one. Because I think if we can show we can get results with less, the appetite for people to give more because they see you've gotten outcome with little in comparison to everybody around us who has gotten hundreds of millions of dollars more than us, many districts that are much smaller than us. We could, because I get we have to, we've got a, we've got a challenge. People don't necessarily trust the system. People don't necessarily think we're doing right with the dollars. Sometimes people don't necessarily think that, we are getting the outcomes. People think we have not been accountable. All of that, I get, are perceptions, and many of them could be true. And so, we can take this year to just focus on execution and building trust and momentum. And I think that will go a long way in the long run as we develop a new strategic plan. I'd stop there and answer questions.
Okay, so I appreciate that. And I want to just make a comment to what you just stated about, the perception, right? And I think Ms. Douglas, Chief Douglas, can appreciate this comment and can really help with that. But the reality is perception is that person's truth, right? And a big thing that, the big lift for PGCPS is to make sure that what is happening, in the gap between what you all are really doing and that person's perception, we begin to kind of move out the my assumption of what's happening. And so then when you all as a school system tell us something, we see the actual receipts of what it is. And so if you're telling me that you're moving money here and you're doing this, then there is some measurement, though I can identify the impact of that. I did appreciate at that budget, I think a community member, Miss Sutton, I think her name was, when she mentioned that the form, in the way that it was had, it wasn't as if it was a two-way conversational piece. People were able to come up. Yes, the board did kind of engage, but it just really seemed as it was, we're going to talk at you all. This is what's happening. And oh yeah, we got this budget thing going on. And so when you have people like us, the council, who want to dig in, right? We want to boots on the ground because we're doing the work. And thank you for coming back to the school system, but we're going to tell you what we've been living, which is our perception, which is also our truth. And so when we as a council come to those meetings, we're going to share with you what we see. I appreciate when the board said we're not going to do any amendments this year, right? Kudos to that comment. But the concern in a person who's in finance, you can provide a suggestion, right? But you amend an approved budget, right? So when they send those amendments, not really understanding the process, it was inflating a deficit that was already there. I also want to make sure that I clarify, the statement about not relying on people. We need people, right? That is how we're going to get things done. Even with all the technology, it will never replace the teacher. It will never replace that soft touch, because if that's the case, we're replacing you, superintendent, and everybody else, and none of us need to be here, and the children are sitting in front of computers, which, right, I believe right now is at a detriment to our students as much time as they're spending on these devices and they're not getting those touches. What the point that I was making with that comment about adding more people to the budget, when there has not been, and I'm not going to go into the positions that have been added, there has been no evidence of the need for those positions. There is no evidence of the impact of the money that we are spending. There is no return on the investment for those positions. And then the money that is being pulled from the schoolhouse, you all say that it's dealing with catering and non-catering. It still came from the schoolhouse. And what we are experiencing as parents, oh, here's the link to the file. You gotta print it out because we can't do any printing. Can you donate more paper towels and toilet paper and donate more of this? Because we don't have the money to do that. So that is the reality of an experience that we are having. So when you say money is not getting cut, money has moved. Now, whether or not the principals kind of really understand how to kind of make that adjustment, do they throw another fundraiser out there for us to give more money? When remember, people are getting furloughed, people are getting laid off. So the income in the households are also decreasing. So we got a deficit in the council and they just spend it like crazy. Unfortunately, when we had that legislative event, there was somebody from your team who also said, oh, we don't need more money for special education. And I was just like, well, how is that? Because it was never funded at the federal level. And so I appreciate you saying that you're going to go after 50 million. The question that I hope that we can come out of these discussions is with that $3 billion, what do we need to do to really have an impact on getting these children from where they are to where they need to be? How do we make them globally competitive? I am excited to hear that you were a debater. My son is debate. Everybody knows I love debate. But over 10, 15 years ago, when I started advocating and trying to push this school system to open up their mind about expanding language immersion, it was a fight. So we do know we have a fight on our hand because unfortunately, the county, the world as a whole, they don't understand the importance of funding education, because we wouldn't have a discussion about teachers being underpaid, right? We wouldn't have a discussion about those individuals that are leading the charge for our kids to come from here to where they need to be. So we know what's out there. We do our SWOT. We know that's a big threat for us. The question then becomes, how do you make sure you communicate those challenges and what the school system is actually doing? Because my perception is that you all are adding more people, right, into the budget to fill all of these positions. What's the return on that investment? And is it something that is helping these children with their reading, with their writing, supporting special education needs? And so I just wanted to kind of touch on a couple of things that you said and summarize it in that way. So I do appreciate, and my charge goes back out to the council. We got to show up. You got to come to these meetings. You may not be able to attend all of them, but your voices do matter in this discussion because as Superintendent Joseph laid out, a lot of information. They can tell us what the pain points are, but they don't see all of the issues that are happening. There are gaps that we can maybe help fill, right? By saying, based on our experience, this is what we are dealing with. And that becomes our reality so they can help close the gap because there are a lot of gaps right now. And when we're talking about finance, we know it's a deficit this year. Lord have mercy, we're not going to talk about what's coming down the pipe for next budget season, right? And so it's going to get worse, but we do have 3 billion, and that is a lot of money. But is it enough to do what we need to do? And if we can pay more teachers, but we're losing students, then the scale is not balanced anymore, right? And so it really wasn't a bunch of questions, just more so to summarize some of the things that I heard you say and to clarify. I'm always going to lean towards having people over technology, but technology is important because AI is here, right? And to make sure that our students understand it, but if they can't read or write outside of AI, we just about to cripple them. And there's another discussion that I would like to have, but I'm gonna put a pin in myself and let Ms. Smith go if that's okay, unless you want to say something, Superintendent Joseph.
No, we definitely need both. We need people and we also need technology. Like I said, the world's changing and we've gotta prepare them. But I think the big thing for us right now as a county, we've got to lay out what our priorities are. I mean, bigger than the school system. School system definitely must do that. As a county, we've got to be clear, we've got to be focused, and we've got to execute, and we've got to be accountable. And I think, at some point, you've got to change the bad habits. And I'm very clear about the fact that I got 2 battles. We've got to build the capacity of the people that are in the system, and we got to make sure we recruit great people to the system. And you've got to, and so it's a bifurcated approach. What do you do for the people that just come in to build their capacity to get it right the first time? What do you do for the people that have been in the system who've been, at best average, and we got to get them better? And so, so thinking about how you do that with the resource you have just requires focus. And we're clear about that.
Thank you. Ms. Smith, and then Ms. Hinton, and then Ms. Perkins.
Thank you, Chair Millhouse. Thank you, Superintendent. There was some keywords that I heard as you were speaking. The first one was blind spot. So I don't have a question, but more so feedback. There's an engineering principle that I live by, and it's the KISS principle. I think as we go into the discussions dealing with the budget, we got to keep it simple for our families. We talked about, Ms. Perkins had mentioned about this in-between document being sent out so we can have families updated. And I agree with that, but families don't know the technical details. So if we can kind of strip away the accounting jargon so that families can know it, well, not just know, but really understand what's being presented, and then being able to react to that, to advocate beyond the school district, advocating at the council level. So make it plain to me so that I know what I'm understanding and what I need to react to. The other thing that I heard was we're going to go out and try to get 50 million, 30 million for special education. Now, I do know that there are restricted funds when it comes to special ed. So I think the question that I have, and it may not be a question to be reacted to tonight, but is really understanding where are the pockets of money coming from to fund special education, so that, I advocate at the congressional level. So Ms. Millhouse already talked about IDEA has never been fully funded. So I think it would be helpful to understand the restricted account versus any other, not account, but bucket versus any other bucket of money that we're trying to get additional funds for. And then there was one other thing. Okay, so then the other thing was about building trust. I think for families, all we hear is that we need money. We don't talk about the constraints that we have. We hear that there are cuts that need to happen. I think what needs to be communicated is what the constraints are, and bring it down to a programmatic level so that we can understand that as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Superintendent, would you just like me to go through the questions, the hands raised, and jump in?
Yes.
Ms. Hinton, Ms. Smith, if you can switch the hand down. Ms. Hinton, you have the floor.
Yes, so I'm so glad to hear that we finally gonna have some budget on somebody who is talking about special education as a parent that is suffering from that since elementary school and was always rejected, having CT scan and like all kind of tests by psychiatrists, by doctor, and was always denial until now that my son is a 12th grader. And I finally got somebody. I had to bring my son who was born and raised here because I think my English was not strong enough. I think I was too soft to speak. I had to bring my husband who is African American. Maybe they can hear him better than they can understand me. That never worked. He was always rejected, having tons of evidence that the child is a special need until I finally got an advocate to advocate for me as a family. And that was the only way that my son can have an IEP or help in the school. And I'm still struggling today. So I'm more than glad to hear that that is on the table and you finally taking that in account and like you trying to help the family. I don't know if I just listening to that or that really going to happen because not all parents know where to find an advocate or can afford one. And that's very painful that we have so many students drop out. Like my neighbor's son just drop out because she can't hire somebody. And this son needs help, but they rejecting them. How can he graduate? And that is something that we need to take in consideration. And many parents need help. Thank you for saying that. At least I hear that. And that makes me happy. I want to see actions. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hinton. And if I can just summarize real quick, a big thing that I heard you say was the advocacy piece and the support. Sorry. The advocacy piece and the support. Okay, because I just wanted to jot down some of the things that I was hearing. Ms. Perkins?
Thank you, Chairman House. Thank you, Superintendent Joseph. I just want to say thank you for being consistent with your messaging. I just wanted to make sure that I acknowledge the fact that the schoolhouse is not the focus of the when you're talking about balancing this budget deficit, right? I appreciate you acknowledging that you're going to start with the central office, right? The external part. My real question is when we talk about the equity of when this impact will hit our PGCPS scholars, right? What or how are you ensuring that it is equitable throughout the county? I know as a parent with the pulse to the ground, there is this feeling in our, county that the North gets this versus the South getting that. So what are you doing within your realm to make sure that the changes that are impacted are equitable throughout the entire county?
Mm-hmm. Well, in terms of funding directly to schools, the state with the blueprint, the dollars are going to go based upon the complexity of children in the facility. So and we have to have a certain amount of dollars, 75%, I think, target of your funds going directly to those schools. So in terms of dollars directly to schools and equitability, the state mandates and charges that. We don't have the same flexibility to be as inequitable as we have been. as a result of how we're getting funded now. I do think we have to look at long term just where our programs are and access to programming across the district. I think that's where we probably see some equity challenges in terms of who has programs where and the access and how long it takes to get to a particular program. I think the bigger thing for me is trying, particularly at the high school level, is ensuring and looking at, I'm going to try to tackle a lot of the equity through the dual enrollment work, because I think if we can get our kids access to high quality dual enrollment sequences, regardless of where they are, you give them all strong college level programming that they'll all have access to. Like, you don't have to be at a particular school to have access, and your neighborhood school would have access to some higher programs, which we don't have right now. The CTE piece is something I think we have to really look at as a system, because, you go into, I was at Bladensburg today, right? For example, in Bladensburg, you got cosmetology, you got, hair cutting and things of that nature, but you go to another place and they got, computer science and networking and things. So there's inequity to access to programming that's clearly seen. And why do our predominantly Latino programs have more of the low-level service-oriented programming types of things that it hits you in the face when you walk in? And I think we've got to have an honest conversation and look at those types of things across the district. And so, I mean, and I'm sure there are a lot of other things we can look at, but the funding piece the state piece is going to take care of, but there's work we have to do. And then our buildings, I think another inequity we see is in our buildings program and making sure, we have to acknowledge, and I said this to Dr. Coleman this year as we were putting together the capital improvement budget. I said, look, let's just be honest and acknowledge that politics play into this program, that it ain't just based upon the numbers. Let's just call it out and figure out a way to be honest and fair about how we do north, south, east, west here as we're doing buildings. Because right now, depending upon whether you got a powerful councilman or somebody else advocating, things shift, and it's not always transparent. And so we've just got to figure out how we acknowledge that and level set for it and keep everything more transparent than it has been. But I know it has not always been as transparent and fair, which leaves some of those feelings about kind of winners and losers in North and South.
Right. I have one more question, Chair Millhouse. May I?
Yes, please.
You mentioned dual enrollment. I'm a parent of a graduate of a dual enrollment scholar in the county. My question is, where are we with the staffing to roll into next school year to be able to open up that access for that new initiative that we have?
Yeah, I know. I can get you I'll get you the specifics as a follow-up. I do know Olivia has been working in recruiting and hiring, getting people ready. The goal for next year, right now, we have 9 schools where you can have dual enrollment on campus, and the goal is for next year to have all 25 high schools. And I know she's been working on that. I'll get you the specific numbers on where we are, but we'll ensure it. What I'm really working on too is I have a meeting coming up with the president of the University of Maryland Global Campus, and speaking to him because they've been a leader in online learning for a very long time, and I'm hoping we can get a sequence of I want to focus on dual enrollment with a sequence to get a certification on something, particularly in this region where you have so many, high tech jobs in demand where they're having hard to fill opportunities. I think we can do much in partnership between with them and Prince George's Community College, and then also Bowie State in our region to really open up pathways. I mean, I don't want right now. It seems like I feel like many kids, unless you're in the Academy of Health Sciences or CMIT, you might have access to dual enrollment, but it's kind of scattered. It's not a sequence that'll get you, you know, a certification or something. And I want to refine the programming much more there, because right now people are opening programs. You might have a sociology class in one school and a, you know, English class in another school and a, you know, a criminal justice class in another school type of thing. So they have access, but it's not really a sequence. So I want to really look at the programming like we have at the Academy of Health Sciences and so forth. So people within a school can go down a path if they choose to.
I encourage you to visit Frederick Douglass High School to talk to that program director for the PTech program.
Yeah. Yep.
Two really good
Will do.
streams from PTech. Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Perkins. And
Good.
so Ms.
Thank you.
Lawrence,
Will do.
Ms. Lawrence, and then Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Dr. Joseph. I just had a quick question. I don't know if this is directed for you, but I appreciate you inviting all the feedback and input from, you know, parents in the community. Will there be a way for us to see parents, community members, to see a summary of all the feedback you're receiving? Excuse me, my kids are loud, so I apologize. Will there be a way for us to see, the community to see that information, the feedback that's received, and also how it impacted the decisions? Because I feel like, you know, I have lived in the county not super long, but, you know, I have friends that grew up here, and I kind of hear the same story over and over again. And I hear about parents and community members that were really invested and had all these great ideas and, you know, and brought them forward. And then it's the same thing, you know, and, you know, my friends were older. So like, this has kind of been the same narrative and the same experience that folks have been having in the county, unfortunately. So just wondering like how this input that you're getting is going to affect the decisions, if we'll be able to see that, so we can see that, you know, it mattered.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess one thing I can say, I know we did a summary of like the listening and learning, all right, and we can get that to you. But from that, that's why special education, safety and security, reading and math, that's where the budget priorities kind of came from, because we had a combination of not only the listening and learning, but then speaking with the board members. We had a survey that went out to the public about the budget priorities. So, you know, where this is coming from is directly from there. I mean, we could package that and put it out to say, so this is how we got here. I mean, that's something I could easily build in, just, you know, pull some of that data. That's good feedback to share, but that's where it came from. You know, probably the one thing that nobody really talked about, but I just see it be a missed opportunity, was AI literacy. Like nobody really talked about it, because I don't know how many people really understand it or what have you. And that was something I probably didn't ask for and just kind of put in the mix. But the other stuff came from that feedback.
Smith.
Thank you, Chair. And Dr. Joseph, we appreciate you attending very late into the evening, considering such a long day. One issue I think is very important for all of us here is that I kind of spoke to at your Largo Town Hall in September regarding parent access to our tests, right? So I spoke to, and a restriction is parents for a good number 2 years weren't allowed access to tests at all inequitably. And currently, in order to see your child's test, you have to schedule a parent-teacher conference for everyone now. That policy,
you're talking about the specific tests that are loaded into the system, right?
yeah, they're grade bearing. They're still grade bearing tests though. So think of it a unit 1 test or a unit 2 test for math or reading, right? Those are into this. They chose to do that into the system, right? But those tests do no longer come back home. So it was myself spoke to Dr. White, maybe several other parents from other parent leaders here and a couple here as well. And I mentioned what your public comments were on it, and she kind of disregarded it. And the unfortunate part, sir, is that is not in district, that is not a board policy or administrative procedure. And so she's instituting something like, at least for the last 3 years, that not substantiated in policy with it. And if that is the case, sir, then we're at trouble here with it. If we can make big decisions like that without any type of parent input and such a vast restriction on it, and let alone the operational impact of the schoolhouse to handle mass exodus of parents wanting to view all their children's assessment at one time.
Can I,
Well, I would say,
Superintendent Smith, Mrs. Smith, I was also in attendance in the meeting. Mr. Williams was there as well.
I think you're getting like a little.
But I want to make sure, because Mrs. Smith, what we are also right now, the segment is about dollars and decisions. And so I don't want to move too far off topic as we're talking about the budget and the impact of the budget. So I do appreciate your summary of the meeting that was had, but I do know also Dr. White was supposed to be kind of. So I'm gonna let you speak for a few minutes on it, but I do want us to stay on topic because it's already 8:30. And so if you could kind of address how you want to follow up with Mr. Smith, that would be it. But I want to stay on this budgeting conversation.
yeah, no, sure. We'll follow up. I think I need more information. I do know the goal is to make sure parents have access, and we can figure out the reasons why and come to a resolution. I'm sure. Just got to figure it out.
Thank you.
So I see Miss Lundy.
Hi, Superintendent.
Hi.
Hi. So I'm taking really copious notes because I'm thinking, and for some reason, what's sticking out to me as we have this budget conversation is when you said, I do like a lot of things that you said. Trust me, I do like that. For some reason, what's sticking out to me, I don't know if it's bifurcated, we're so decentralized instead of centralized. You kept saying there's issues around us being a county and a system. And for some reason, that's sticking out to me. How I don't even really know how to say it, but it seems like we're just so disjointed or what have you, that we're not on the same page, that we're not, and it's not cohesive. And so I don't know how, you have a big task on your hand and all of that, but I think it's something about the statement you're making about looking at us as a county and as a system.
Yeah, again, I think, like I said, a people without a vision perish. I think we've got to ask ourselves, honestly, who are we? And then we've got to ask ourselves, who do we want to be? And we've got to ask ourselves, what are our values? What are we committed to doing? And we've got to have a collective answer to that. And I don't think we do. I think that there are pockets of conversations and pockets of people doing stuff like as a system, like even, as a system right now, if you don't establish the priorities and you don't put key performance indicators to them and you don't hold yourself accountable to monitoring and reporting out on where you're going, you just don't get there. You're putting a lot of energy in, but that energy is just getting burnt without really moving you in a direction. And so I think coherence has been a problem in our system. Right? Like this, we try to do too much with too little resource. And I think we don't say, this is what we're focused on right now and we expect to get good at. And as we get more resource, we'll start working on this and start working on this. Like we try to do too much with too little, and then we get no result. And then everybody's frustrated. And I just don't think that's a wise approach when you're trying to scale excellence. We've got pockets of excellence, but we don't have excellence at scale. And, it's the variance, the differences that we've got to figure out. What are the levers we push to start getting more scale and more quality? I think how we handle professional development in the district, for example, for teachers is just not good. We've got too many teachers that can easily not get trained or get supported in key areas that we care about. And if we don't have a way to build the capacity of teachers, we'll never scale quality. And so those are some of the things we have to look at. I mean, some of the pervasive, the vacancies has killed us. I mean, last year, again, we had 900 vacancies in a school district of 10,000 students. I mean, you're talking about almost 10%. You can't, I mean, that's going to have an impact. I mean, it's the reason we're in special education corrective action. Part of it, And then the other was the complaints, but the complaints became because of the vacancies. Uh, because then people are not following up on things. And so I think we've got to look at some of the basic stuff that's killing us and acknowledge it and work to fix it. And I don't sometimes you can get, you can have so many problems, you just, kind of close your eyes and just try to just get through. And you know what I mean? I think we've got to be much more strategic and intentional, and just call out where we are, but you don't move a system like Prince George's County in isolation. Like a superintendent can't do it by himself or herself. A board can't do it by themselves. It takes the full connected system. The system is connected to a broader county, and we've got to have a county-wide strategy. Because we gotta figure out what we're gonna do first, second, and third with the resources that we have, and be able to communicate that. And that's why I say we got to be clear about our value system. Right now, you look at our current strategic plan, which centers around culturally responsive instruction. And, it's called, I think, Transformation 2026. But when you look into it, like, what does that mean? What does culturally responsive instruction mean? From school to school. What would excellence look like in that? And does that correlate with how we're evaluating ourselves? And could everybody communicate what our strategies are to get to that goal? And if they can't, you won't get there. You'll have a coherence problem. And so that's what I mean. And if you look in there, you got a bunch of key performance indicators. You got probably over 100 different things we say we want to do and get well. You can't do 100 things well with limited resource. And you've got to be able to lock in. Like, excellence is narrowly defined. And so we got to be clear about our definition and what we want to be excellent at, and then put the resource there to get there, to start moving and getting a sense of momentum. And I don't think we've done that well at this point.
Well, excuse me, I appreciate all the questions. Do we have any other questions, comments, concerns? So Superintendent Joseph, my question for you is, as a council, right, your advisory council, you got all these experts sitting around. What is the charge for us? What do you need us to do to support this process? And where do we need to begin to have our eyes moving to gather more information to better understand? So as we come with any type of recommendations that support, the work that's being done, so we can properly use the 3 billion, right? So we can support what you all are doing in identifying the cuts. But what's the charge for the council?
I think step one, I think we've got to learn together. Look, I get paid to sit here and spend my winter break reading through these reports, looking at, looking at these things and pulling the stuff together. But I have to be able to get it to you in a way that's digestible, for you to be able to see what I see and be able to give me perspectives that I don't see. And so, first thing though is to learn together. Like, getting through a $3 billion budget is a lot, and I don't think our budget book is easy to understand.
Right.
And so I know we got to clean that up. So, even recommendations on how to clean that up, and and examples of to make it easier to understand that. But we gotta have a common understanding and a common language. Like, I have some materials and things that I'm meeting with the county executive tomorrow for our first budget conversation, and I pulled together some different data and things to try to even educate there, just where are we, where do we want to be, and so forth. But and I'll share that with you all as we move forward. But I think having a common understanding helping us to level set and have common expectations of and being realistic about what we can do in 180 days a year in terms of, moving the needle year after year, helping us come to consensus on the most important KPIs for us to focus on, because we can't focus on 100. What can we focus on? It shouldn't be me just deciding here are the 10 things. Like, it should be a collective, we all agree this is the things that we want to go after, and finding a way to better kind of report out and communicate. I mean, there are a lot of good things happening in Prince George's County that don't get out. The bad things get magnified. And I think we just need a constant cadence of here are the facts and helping us elevate what's out there and helping us to get more people engaged. A lot of times people don't engage because they're like, I ain't gonna waste my time. Well, I'm gonna come, y'all ain't gonna listen, you ain't gonna do anything, and then I done wasted an hour of my life. There's a set level of frustration.
You see all the head nods, right?
Right. So, helping us think through structures to be more efficient and effective in getting messaging out, as Ms. Perkins shared, that everybody can't come to a meeting for 2-3 hours on a Zoom, but how can they get the information in a more accessible way? I heard that conversation, with Ms. Douglas, and so helping us think through that would be helpful.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'm gonna have to go back and listen to what you said so I can better summarize and put it in like 1, 2, 3 bullet points.
Yes.
And so, but if Chief Douglas, if you're still here, what would be helpful if when you all meet this week, if you can get something to us that kind of summarizes, hey, if the council can, like you said, we have some goals, something to focus on. So as it relates to the dollars for decision in this budget piece, because I can say for some of us, like, I'm in the finance world, so I'm going to take the budget as is. I don't need you to change anything. I don't need you to do anything. I need to see it in its rawest form, but in other ways that people need to see it where it's more digestible, right? And so I think if you all could kind of tell us, right, what you all would like for us to do to support this process, right? And we may then, based on the list that you give us, also be able to come back with some other ways, right? And some things that we missed. Because I don't want to take what I heard as I was trying to write quickly, what you stated, and summarize it in a way. But if you all can put it in your words and send it to us, and please, anybody on the council chime in. I think that would be helpful, because as we're meeting, then that gives us something to chew on outside of the meeting. So when we come back as a council, we can share. I'm hoping that many of us can attend tomorrow's meeting, right? And so we can hear what's happening. We can add input and be with other community members, which would be very helpful. But it really is about not what's not being done. We are where we are at this point. What are we going to do to get us to where we need to be across that finish line? And if we know the goals, we can dig into our knowledge base and pull up that and put on our glasses to kind of read what's happening, and then say to you, this is what we understand with the directive that you've given us as your advisory group.
Chair Millhouse, was that question for me? It sounded like it was, and we can gather that information and send to you. We've had newsletters that we're calling Dollars and Decisions, and so what we can do is make sure that you have that and that you're fully informed and can review that.
No, we have that.
Okay.
So we have access to that, but specifically for this advisory council, right? And so the work that we do, because right now we're meeting, we're talking about things, but we're here to advise the superintendent and the board. And so when you say to us, this is what the need, like to me, the need is, hey, we're having these meetings. We need your voices. We need you to come to these meetings that we have scheduled, right? And am I correct on that? Right?
Yes.
Right? Show up, engage, give feedback, give input, right? And if there's anything else outside of this, like we talked about communication, and I've jotted some things down that I also heard, but just making sure that if it's something that you need us to, dive a little deeper into as an advisory group, we're here to do that.
We something to you. That's not a problem at all.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Ms. Perkins, you have your hand up? Is it an old hand, a new hand?
It's an old hand. Could you actually ask the question I was going to ask the superintendent? So I apologize. I'm lowering my hand.
Okay. Dr. Jackson?
Hello, I am just excited that this meeting happens tonight and that we will have an opportunity tomorrow as part of that advisory council to actually create our document with the questions, but also the answers. So that will be a work session that will give us an opportunity to have some talking points, some action steps when we leave. So thank you, and thank you for encouraging people to be there tomorrow. It's really important to have your input.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Any other comments, questions? Because I will say this, I get excited about budget season, right? I am that person. Yes, I'm not getting paid, but I'm sitting there reading that budget from the beginning to the end, and I'm highlighting where I can't see what the changes are. And you're telling me that you reduce headcount, but you reduce FTEs, but I still see the money sitting there. And I want to be able to see if there's a reduction in those individuals. I shouldn't see increases still in the salary line item when we got fewer people. So I'm that person, right? I am going to dig into that. But for the council as a whole, for the community as a whole, it is very important that we put it in layman's term, but we still need to crosswalk it, right, to the accounting terms, because when people are going out and they are speaking to their elected officials, those elected officials, they got to know how to talk that language, right? They have to know when they hear certain things, what they are talking about with the budget and the line item and what's allocated and what is not, and what's locked and what is not locked, right? And so it's important to have that, in layman's term, but it's also important because you said it, to build capacity, right? And we have to build capacity so people understand, because when you do those KPIs, what are we measuring? What does it look like? But first of all, how did we create the KPIs, right? Why did we create the KPIs? And a big piece is if we can make sure that when we are building the budget, talking about the budget, when we look at the state plan, because we have to submit that, right? That goes to the state, that aligns with what the requirements are, that we also share the state plan, right? State the requirements of what we have to share for the budget and what it looks like. Because people need to know you're not haphazardly out here trying to come up with numbers. There is a governance that says you have to do certain things and why. So that answers a lot of what you're doing, the way you're doing it. That helps with accountability. Dr. Jackson, your hand is still up. You have a new question? Okay. And so at this point, I see that Board Member Walker is here. Before we move off of this segment, Superintendent Joseph, do you have anything that you would like to add to the discussion?
No, thank you.
Okay. So we appreciate you. And I don't know if you're going to stay with us to the end, because we're going to kind of wrap up rather quickly, because we're going to move into presentations. And Dr. Jackson, if you can just tell us whatever is hot and heavy and not go through everything. And not that we don't want to hear what you have to say, but I won't cut your time down.
It is not a problem. You all have my PowerPoint. I was going to talk about the budget and decisions meetings that are coming up, to which you all have been invited. So the first one, again, is going to be tomorrow night. And in that PowerPoint has the rest of the days that those meetings will be held as well.
So can you pull that up so we can see the dates? That way, if everybody, they may not have seen it in their email. So I would like you to, because we spend a lot of time talking about the budget. So I want to make sure that people can check their calendars right here, real time.
I will find it and pull it up so that we can have it. The other thing that I always like to share is our calendar for Family Institute sessions that are going to be kicking off very shortly for the spring. And there will be ones that I'm sure that you all will really enjoy. As you know, we are getting ready to do a major presentation to MSDE about our math plans And so they will be joining us to talk about mathematics for every student in Prince George's County. And so that's coming up, and I'm trying to get this PowerPoint open for you all. There we go. So that I can share it with you. I'm trying to think what else. But those are the main things that I want to talk about, was the fact that, yes, we have our session for tomorrow, beginning those community advisory, budget advisory meetings start up again tomorrow. We definitely look forward to all of you being there. It will be an opportunity to not only hear additional information from what Dr. Joseph shared with us, but also an opportunity for you to give us some direct feedback into our planning. And so I'm looking for, I'm sorry, I'm holding things up. I'm sorry, let me get it.
Okay, I just want you to be able to show the dates. So
Yes.
and to make sure that we clarify, you don't have to attend every single date. If you can, then attend every single date. But if you cannot, you can still identify the date that works for your calendar to attend.
So can you all see my screen now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, good, good. So yes, tomorrow, January 8th, will be virtual, and you all received an email from me today with the link in it. The next one will be January 14th. Then we'll have February 4th and February 18th. And you're absolutely correct, Mrs. Millhouse. You don't have to attend every one of them, but it is a process of building. The information will be different at every meeting because we are moving forward in a process to make sure that we're asking for exactly what we need for next year for our students. So, just wanted you all to have that, and you all do have this PowerPoint in your portal.
And I also want to state that the February 4th meeting is the same day as our PCAC meeting.
Okay.
So we discussed that before, and Superintendent Joseph, are you still
Yes,
there?
I'm here.
So quickly, we are willing to move or not move, but that February 4th meeting would actually be us attending that board and decision meeting. So we wouldn't have a publicized PCAC meeting that day. And so we were stating that you all didn't need to move your date for us because we, as your advisory group, will just attend that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
So, thank you. Ms. Perkins, your hand, is it up again or is it?
It actually is. Quick question, Dr. Jackson. So I was looking at the slide deck for the Future Family Institute sessions. The January 13th Office of College Readiness, that session, has the county shared all of that information to the high school counselors so that they can publicize and make sure that all of the scholars are showing up? Because I think that this one right here is a very, very important one, especially because this is like that time period and then seniors and juniors where they really need to lock in and making sure that they're aware of all of their options. So has this information been shared with all of the high school counselors?
Yes, it has been shared, but I appreciate your question, and I'm going to ask them to make sure they talk about it during that session as well.
Okay.
Because it is all of this professional school counselors at the high school have been talking about this information since October. So we just want to make sure that everybody has it. And if you have children at the high school level, make sure you talk to them about it because it has been shared.
And as a high school PTSO president, I'll make sure that the principal has this on the school calendar because I know that sometimes you all's planning is excellent, but if it's not on the school's calendar, it's not communicated to the parents. And I know we spoke about that at one period of time, making sure that the Family Institute series was also in conjunction with the school calendar so that parents could refer back to that. So I'll follow up with the ones that I'm affiliated with in this district.
Thank you. And thank you for that reminder for me that I will be talking with Chief Douglas about how do I get these on school level calendars as well. Because you're absolutely correct. Oftentimes, if it's a school that has a community school coordinator or parent engagement assistant, they will put it on the school calendar. But not every school has that staff member. So thank you for reminding me.
Thank you. And the other question is, if you all have a list of all the PTAs or parent groups, at the different schools, is there any way you can do a blast email communication, to the parent groups as well? I think that kind of helps, cutting some of the middle piece out. Just a suggestion.
Thank you for asking. That is something that we do, but I appreciate that your knowledge of what we need to do is so important to us. So thank you. We send it to people who have attended in the past, to all parent leadership organizations for whom we have information. But yes, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Lundy?
Hi again, Superintendent. Is he still here? Oh, there. Did he leave us?
No, he's still here.
Oh, fabulous. Okay, so coming from the municipality standpoint, two things. I know within the municipalities, they have excellent treasurers and financial people that you all maybe could link up with that could help in some kind of way with putting the budget. I know you have all this expertise in the school system or what have you, but I know as a former councilwoman, one of the things was hard for me because I'm not really a budget person at the time. I'm still learning a lot as I go. I'm not like Miss Millhouse here. But our budget person that was in the town of Bladensburg was very helpful. But the reason why I raised my hand is reason why I raised my hand, I'm the kind of person I kind of like look at things differently. So is there a way, if it's not already being done, because I'm not sure if Dr. Jackson mentioned it or not, is there a way to build in our classroom curriculum that's already made up, or a special day or something where students can be engaged with the budget? Maybe parents can be invited in or whatever. Because I know in municipalities, we have something where we do with the mayors. And the way to get these students in the different high schools and elementary schools informed about public policy and being mayors and council people and Congress people, we invite them to write essays, to come in and meet with the mayors and the towns and all that good stuff. So I was wondering, has it ever been done in Prince George's County where they had a day where the students or the student government kind of partnered with the school board or what have you, something like that, so they can kind of learn something about budgets or whatever, and then write essays and just ask their own little questions they may have, and with their parents with them, because whatever we do, we should have parents and students together. That's it. Thank you.
Yeah, that's something. Definitely, I'd love to get the student board members' input on that. We did engage, and I engaged the County Student Government Association, and we had a group of them come out for the dollars and budget convening, and they gave input there. But that's a small group of students versus the 132,000 students we have in the district. But I think step one, bring it there, and then two, we got to ask again, what's the return on the time and effort and investment, and where would we want to go with it? I'd want to do something more. Any initiative we bring on, we want to make sure that we're clear about the outcome and the benefit, and just more discussion to ferret that out would be beneficial.
Thank you, Superintendent. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Miss Board Member Walker, your hand was up, and Miss Smith, I need you to step in.
Yes, I had put it down, but I'll take the opportunity. Hello, everyone, and Happy New Year. I was just going to say to Dr. Jackson, Sheila Jackson, thank you for putting that presentation together. I think one benefit that we can help with as the Board of Education is we do have all of our PTA and PTO leader organizations, our principals as well. And, if having those two slides, just the Family Institute slides, as well as the dollars and decision slides, we can put those in our newsletters, make sure we send it out to our constituents, and then make sure we also can get those to the schools. I mean, we should coordinate that because that's something that we can have happen on our side. PGCPS has access to all the principals. We have access to the PTA and PTO organization. So that's something that we should have as a standard when we have these amazing opportunities for our parents to engage in.
Thank you so
So the
much.
action item is to, the action item is to take those two slides specifically, send them to the board office, and
Okay.
have and you can send it, you can put me on copy, but also to make sure we're putting those in our newsletters and also getting out to our PTA and PTO organizations as well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So, Dr. Jackson, does this conclude your report?
Yes, it does.
All
Thank
right,
you.
excellent. Ms. Welsh, the chair recognizes you.
Good evening. I'll be quick. I know we're getting to the end of the evening. I did want to share that the Board of Education did vote to enact the following policies. They did this in the December 18th board meeting. They voted on policy 0104, the Title IX policy, and policy 5159, which is the telehealth policy, and then policy 8104, which is participation in meetings electronically, and then policy 8265, evaluating the superintendent of schools, and policy 1100, which is the community schools policy. They also had sent out, the committee itself had sent out for public comment, and that period actually closed yesterday for the two policies, policy 5117, pre-K and literacy, promotion and retention, and then policy 8100, Board of Education standing committees and focus work groups. So we will be looking at the public comments that have come in on the policy and governance committees meeting next Tuesday, the 13th, and reviewing any public comments that did come in on those two policies. And I also want to point out at the January 13th policy meeting, then policy 0105, parent, family, and community. It's actually community engagement because the name of it has been changed from involvement to engagement. That policy the committee will be voting on that policy for it to go out for public comment, as well as policy 5122, which has to do with the requirements for interscholastic athletics. And so those two will be going out for public comment, and we do always encourage that the public and all of you to respond to these policies. And I did send to I'm not sure which secretary in the board office, but I did send to them a copy of the actual policy 0105, parent, family, and community involvement, because being PCAC, I would think this policy is probably one of the most important policies that you would be wanting to look at. And certainly we welcome all comments on that policy, and it will be out there for a full 2 weeks. So we really do want to hear from everyone related to the policy. And since Dr. Sheila Jackson actually worked on the policy and any revisions, I don't know, Sheila, if you would like to just speak briefly about any changes to the policy.
Thank you, Robin. The major changes to the policy is that we wanted to bring it into current research-based language. So we changed it from involvement to engagement, because that is involvement is the way we started. Engagement is a more active term about how do we work together to build the kind of partnerships we want to see. So that is going to be part of informing the policy going forward. We also wanted to make sure that we touched on the various groups in our definition of who is part of what we call the parent community. As you review that policy, you'll see that our parents are known by many different titles, but it's very important for us to acknowledge all of them. And so I just invite your comments, your feedback. The policy was reviewed by our superintendent who approved it, but also our entire executive cabinet. And that means chiefs and leaders from every division within the school system who have anything to do with engaging families. So we hope that you all will take a close look at it and give us good feedback on it as we move it forward for our Board of Education's final approval.
I did have one, sorry, I'm out of order.
Chair Smith, I'm back and your hand is up.
Thanks, Ms. Millhouse. I had a quick question, and it's just for clarity. When I look at the language inside of the policy, I see a lot of sections that says PGCPS and each school. What exactly does that mean? Why are we separating the schoolhouse from PGCPS?
It was very much more explicit to do it that way. A lot of times when we just say PGCPS or the board, people don't see themselves in it. And so we wanted to make sure that schools recognize their role in helping us implement the policy.
So does PGCPS solely mean the board?
It's all about interpretation, and we've had so many variances in interpretation. I think it's a decision that the board will probably have to decide on its own, but that's what we came up with as a committee working on it.
Okay,
Just
thank you.
making sure that it was clear that it's not just the board, but schools have a responsibility.
Okay. Thank you, Vice Chair Smith. Ms. Perkins?
Yes, I did have just a question in reference to the language, Dr. Jackson. So I know that Superintendent Joseph speaks a lot about action-oriented, right? When we're bringing these policies up to date. There is language in there that says PGCPS will, right? There's a lot of that. But then there's a line item that says PGCPS shall comply. And we're talking about KPIs and managing ourselves and our progress and action-oriented. Is there a reason why shall wasn't changed to will?
Probably simply because it wasn't caught. So
Well,
thank you.
it's-
Thank you for pointing that out. And Robin, please answer as well.
I just want to point out, I know I'm just looking at the policy right now and I see under like, I can't tell the letter, I think it's K. But it says PGCPS shall comply with the requirements of Every Student Succeeds Act. So that is a legal requirement, and the language shall is actually meeting that legal requirement of that we don't have a choice. We shall meet those requirements, and so that's why shall was put in there.
Well, shall was the original, so that's why it wasn't taken out. Is that what you mean, Robin?
No, I mean that it's by because it is a legal requirement that we often, if you look at a lot of our policies, we have that language shall in there because of it.
Okay, got it. Thank you for that clarification, Robin.
But thank you, Ms. Welsh. And so I want to bring something to our attention is that what I'm going to make sure, Ms. Welsh, that you all are asking is for us to provide some feedback, right? As a council, if we are not meeting in February because we're going to have the budget, the decision, dollars and decisions conversation, what will need to happen is if you can just send us the timeline of when the cycle for feedback is happening, when it closes for that, so we can kind of structure how we can work collectively and make any of the recommendations and get that back to you all.
I'll be glad to.
February. Thank you. That'd be very helpful. Do we have any other questions about any of the policies that were shared? Any comments, questions, concerns? Please don't get this excited about responding back to anything that I've said. And so if hearing none, Dr. Jackson and Ms. Welsh, thank you both for, Ms. Perkins.
Yeah, Ms. Perkins' hand is up.
Okay, I have one more question. Ms. Welsh, is it possible if I think the better way, I think Chairman House mentioned it, it's also important if you have like this quarter, right? These are going to be the policies that you guys are going to review, for us to have that in advance. So it's less of a reactive, but more of a support capacity that we actually have time to review. It was really helpful to receive and to have this linked and diligent. But if we had it, like earlier, I think that would be, because we want to stay on pace when we're supporting you all on what you're implementing and executing and working as well to do better with that collaboration and partnership.
So I just put together actually a schedule for the rest of the year for the policies for the committee, and shared it with them at our planning meeting. So I could certainly share that with the PCAC members so that you know which policies are going to be coming up through the rest of the school year.
That would be wonderful. Thank you, Ms. Walsh.
Thank you. And keep me honest to make sure I don't miss any other hands, because I'm about to move into item 8.1, which is to adjourn the meeting. And so if there is no more discussion for item 7.2, we will move into item 8.1, which is to adjourn this meeting at 8:56 p.m. I do want to thank the superintendent for joining us tonight, Chief Douglas, of course, our board member, Ms. Walker, and Ms. McMillan. I hope you enjoyed your first time with us. Come back anytime. And so if there's anyone else, someone can go ahead and motion to adjourn. Now, this very moment.
I motion to close it out.
Thank you
So
very much.
move. Carletta
moved.
Lundy.
And at this time, it is 8:56. You all have a wonderful night.
You
Okay?
too.
Thank you. You too. Good night, everyone.
Happy
Happy New Year.
Time.
Bye.
You
Bye
too.
now.